Hello, everybody, and welcome to the War Room for UFC 248 main event. Israel Adesanya against Yoel Romero. Okay, I've just recorded Inside the Octagon for this yesterday, so I'm going to do this now while it's fresh in my brain, and I'm going to go through the show in my head as it was planned out because that's the most logical way for me to do it. There's a reason I'm going through that process as well. So the first thing that we need to talk about is why is Adesanya deciding to defend his belt against Yoel Romero when Romero's coming off losses? It's because Yoel Romero is one of the most terrifying people in the division, and every single middleweight on the planet knows it. The other thing as well is everyone that's fought Yoel Romero, aside from his fight against Cavalcanti, which was at light heavyweight, now he's at middleweight. I mean, if we focus on his middleweight career and his UFC career, his whole UFC career has been at middleweight. His decision loss to Whittaker, split decision loss to Whittaker, unanimous decision to Paulo Costa. None of those fights were easy. Not one of those people beat him and made it look easy. Every single one of them was wrecked. What Adesanya wants to do is to beat Yoel Romero easier, cleaner, more technically, and if he can, more spectacularly than anybody else has been able to. That's the challenge here. It's getting to the end of the 25 minutes and not needing 6 months off your career and a surgery. Adesanya knows that this is the risk, and he knows that there's a lot of respect that comes with beating Yoel Romero. So that's why he's defending his belt against him, in my opinion. That's why he's called for this fight. The things that make Yoel Romero dangerous, number one, that wild, explosive, chaotic unpredictability. He's hanging back, he's not doing anything, you step forward and then you're unconscious because he's landed a flying knee. Or he's hanging back, he's waiting, and then he decides he just wants to put his foot on the gas and he moves like a hot rod and he's just in your face. He's just punch. Majority of stuff's landing on your guard or on your ribs or on the sides of your head. Everything's hurting because he must hit like a truck. And it's just this onslaught, this exhausting onslaught that you have to keep dealing with and you don't know when it's coming. So what does Adesanya do with that pressure? Well, with the unpredictability, he manages range very well. So that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting him to try and keep that distance between him and Yoel Romero of a decent space so he can see anything that's coming. Yoel Romero tends to wind up. There's a build in his forward attacks. The explosiveness is dangerous because that usually hits you when you're moving towards him. Like think of the Chris Weidman knee, for example. And I think it was Marks. Oh no, there was punches. Clifford Starks. I always get those two mixed up. Clifford Starks got hit with a flying knee as well. His legs went stiff, fell backwards. Like that's most of the time people come into him and him hitting them with one big shot. When he's going to attack, when he's going to come sprinting forward, there's a wind up to it. It's like you can see the wave building before it hits the beach. So Adesanya is going to be watching for that, and he's going to be maintaining that space between them as well as he can. As soon as he sees that burst, he's going to clear out the way. He's going to give Yoel Romero as much space as he needs to get that out of his system. What was a nice dry run for this fight was his fight against Whittaker, Whittaker was attacking him in the same ways. He was coming forward, he was throwing that big left hook, he was kind of sprinting forward and covering distance and missing most of his shots. So when Adesanya's got a gauge on that movement and that attack of Yoel Romero, and once he's given him that space, Yoel Romero will be sprinting into space and there's nobody there to hit. Hopefully for Adesanya. I mean, obviously, everything I'm saying could be Adesanya could step in with a jab and get knocked out with a knee in the first 10 seconds, or it could happen in the last 10 seconds in the last round. That's the danger with Yoel Romero. So everything I'm saying here, one thing we can't discount is Yoel Romero is incredibly dangerous. That's the whole point of this. So I'm talking about this much more from an Adesanya perspective because he's the one that has the problem to solve. Yoel Romero, obviously, if he wins this fight, he's the world champion, and that's huge. But he's not going to change anything about himself. I even think Adesanya said this in a recent interview about a leopard not being able to change its spots. Like, you know what you expect from Yoel Romero. He's a great wrestler, but we don't really see his wrestling. I even think I've not got UFC. Oh, have I got? Yeah, I have UFC stats. Like takedown accuracy for Yoel Romero is 31%. Like, I mean, I'll point and laugh at myself, but I think mine's around 30%. You know what I mean? Yoel Romero doesn't use takedowns very much. When he does, it's a blast double at the end of the round, and that's like a 2004 perspective of scoring. You can't steal rounds with takedowns anymore. At least you shouldn't be able to if the judges are educated correctly. A takedown needs to lead to some kind of damage, a sub attempt, something that threatens the end of the fight. A takedown in the last, I mean, against Costa, I think 2 rounds, it was in the last 10 seconds and in the last 5 seconds he shot takedowns. This is worth very little in my eyes. So the value of his wrestling in going into this fight is much more out of a desperation than anything. I think if we see Romero wrestle, it's because he's feeling like he's got no other options. I think what he learned from the first Whittaker fight is that if he comes out and he wrestles hard early, because he did against Whittaker, and Whittaker did a great job of defending those takedowns, especially with one leg. I think Yoel realized that he was getting tired fast. Then when he's tired, he's vulnerable in the later rounds. So the change in his style has been much more about, okay, I'll hold back. If I'm fighting 25 minutes, I'll hold back for the first 10 minutes. I'll kind of cruise a little bit, and I'll just try and pot shot them. And then in the last sort of 15 minutes, I'll start to put my foot on the gas. He's got 6 knockouts in the 3rd round. So that's the way that he fights. He's the long range player. He likes to kind of allow those rounds to kind of cruise by him a little bit and just maybe catch them with a big shot. He did the same thing with Machida. Hang back, play kickboxing with him a little bit, have a couple of bursts, see if I can land a shot that will damage him. And he landed some great shots in that fight. He also was walking forward with disdain, like Machida was not dangerous at all. So I think he feels like as long as he's fresh, no one can hurt him. He allowed Paulo Costa to come and throw bombs at him as well, and he just kind of absorbed it. Took body kicks. I mean, he just didn't seem bothered at all. So I think as long as he feels like he's fresh, he feels like he's untouchable. He feels like people can't hurt him. And his way to stay fresh is by starting slower and allowing those first couple of rounds to cruise by. So in the first couple of rounds, I think we might see a few bursts from him. I mean, obviously, he might come out here and just decide he wants to try and get it done quickly. But I'm talking what's most likely scenario in my head is, weighing up all the options. I think he comes out and he cruises for the first couple of rounds. He has a few bursts to see what Adesanya does with it. Adesanya will give him that space. He'll drop back. He'll allow Romero to run into space. And then once those sprints become discouraged, then we'll start to see Adesanya not give quite as much ground. Back up, but not back up quite as far, like he was in the Whittaker fight. At the end of the round, he just started to get that range where he was safe and out of range, but able to clip him with a shot. 1 second. So I think that's what I'm expecting from this. I don't think he's going to do it in the first round or two. I think he's going to give Romero's power that respect to not hang out in that range and try and get the spectacular knockout. I think he's going to play the long game. I think their perspective is that if they can outpoint him for 25 minutes and not get touched, that is just as good as knocking him out. So I don't think there's going to be a hurry on Adesanya's part. I think Romero he'll charge into space a few times. He'll miss because Adesanya's not bothered about staying there. And then he'll start hanging inside just a little more. He'll start slipping a bit more when he's got the rhythm of Yoel Romero. The other thing is, if you've missed a few shots in those flurries early, then you go from going 100% to going 90% to going 80% to going 70% because I'm missing now. Then you go from throwing 12 punches to throwing 10 punches to throwing 8 punches, and then your enthusiasm for that aggression drops off the less success you have. So then when Yoel Romero starts charging forward with 2 punches and they're not landing, Adesanya then starts slipping and countering. That's what we saw in the first round against Whittaker. He landed a clean shot and he dropped him. With the knockout, he had to stay in a little longer and land a second shot to properly get the finish. But he took a shot in the process there, which he was annoyed about. So I think that illustrates that he wants to hit and not get hit. So he's gonna give Romero that respect. So then let's flip it over to Yoel Romero. Now I'm in this situation where I'm fighting this guy who's very slick, feels like he's hitting me from across the octagon. I can't get close to him. I've not been able to touch him. If I have touched him, it's not really bothered him too much because he slips and rides shots so well. So now what do I do? Okay. The more recent version of Yoel Romero that we've seen, and I think, again, this was an adaptation from the first Whittaker fight, he has this high guard and he just kind of walks his way into range. He takes shots. He lets stuff roll off him. In the Costa fight, he let Costa come to him and was doing the same thing. I think then he'll start trying to walk Adesanya down, trying to walk him into range and land big shots. This is where Adesanya can then start play his counter-striking, which is what he likes to do. The challenge for Yoel Romero here is that he's confident in this guard because he sees the majority of people that he's fighting winding up with these shots. Paulo Costa's sending you a postcard before he's throwing his right hand because it's coming from behind him. So Yoel Romero, who moves like a cat anyway, who's got very, very fast reaction times. I pick out an elbow on inside the octagon. Just watch that. He slips an elbow from Paulo Costa that's full power against the fence. I don't know whether he would have ever drilled that, but it was a reaction time that I've not seen in many fighters. So he's very, very slick, very good at moving out of the way. Adesanya doesn't show you the shot that he's going to throw. He shows you a couple of different options of what he might show you, what he might throw. He'll do like a slide where he'll show you his hip and then he'll throw his rear hand. It's the opposite way around. Show you his left kick, throw his left hand. Show you his left kick, show you his left hand, throw his high kick. Show you his high kick, throw his left hand. Like, chaining things together is a thing of beauty, and he's so good at being able to set those traps and like basically smoke out the holes in someone's defense. That's the way I like to think about it. That's what a jab's for. You throw a jab, you see what the person does. Do they pull back? Do they cover up? Do they turn their head away and close their eyes? You know, what are the options for this guy in his head? What's the first thing that he's going to do when I throw this thing? And then you exploit that reaction. That's where Yoel Romero's got to watch out for, because he needs to know when he's being exploited and when he's being attacked. And that's where Adesanya is very, very good. The other thing that we need to discuss as well is the oblique kick, that hop side kick to the lead leg. Adesanya's got a very long stance. If someone's very good at moving, you need to slow them down. You need to disable them. We don't see many like hard leg kicks from Yoel Romero that are nothing that is not going to be blocked or avoided because of the wind up. But that hop side kick that he used against Whittaker was very damaging. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to use a few of those in this fight. So then the question is, what does Adesanya do with that? There's a clip where, because obviously Robert Whittaker used that against Yoel Romero in their rematch. He also came into the Adesanya fight with that same tool, that same weapon. So Adesanya's seen this technique before. So as Robert Whittaker was hopping in with that side kick, he was sliding back and returning with a high kick. Very slick. So I feel like whatever they're doing at City Kickboxing is working. They're doing a great job. Eugene Berman is on his game, and they are whatever the recipe is over there. You know, keep cooking it. I think they are going to study him. I think they're going to learn his traits and his tells. I think they're going to have a really good idea of who Yoel Romero is before they get in there and what to expect from him. It's just putting that game plan into practice now against one of the most dangerous guys in the division. And if he hits you with one shot, you might need to be out for a while. And Adesanya's at the beginning of his career. He's already talking about Jones and Stipe and all those kind of things. So to get through Yoel Romero, to take the risk to fight Yoel Romero, deserves absolute respect. So anyway, enjoy the fights, and I'll see you next time.